Okay, we've got that recording going. Good morning, everyone. Vikki Martin here, and we are live from the Product Evaluation Laboratory, which is at the Cotton Incorporated headquarters in Cary, North Carolina. And we're very excited about what we're doing today. As part of the 50th episode of Cotton and Coffee, this is going to be completely different than any other episode that you've experienced so far. You will not see a single slide presentation at this point in what we're doing today. We are going to attempt to do a live tour of our presentation. We have no professional photographers, no professional videographers. We do not have a light crew, and I do not consider myself to be a director. So cross your fingers, hang on to that coffee cup, and we're going to try to make this the best experience that we can for you this morning. This is a physical testing laboratory. And when we talk about a physical testing laboratory, that means that we are physically testing the products within this lab, as compared to an analytical lab where they are responsible for doing the chemical testing in a lab environment. We do all of the research and implementation testing in support of all those activities within Cotton Incorporated. So, for example, for our agricultural and environmental research group, if they're looking at water use efficiency, nitrogen use efficiency, management practices to reduce inputs, and other aspects for improving cotton production, we still have to do the fiber testing to see the impact of those processes on fiber quality. For our textile division, the product development and implementation division, as they're working on those new technologies, things that you've heard about in other cotton and coffees, tough cottons and storm denims, as they work on new research ideas, we're providing testing services for them on those materials. In addition to that, as they work to more sustainable programs in terms of reducing water use, reducing chemical use, or transitioning to safer and greener chemistries and textiles, we provide all the testing support for them as well. Another service that we provide is the implementation testing, and that's when a retailer or a brand adopts a Cotton Incorporated technology, the textile mill that's going to be producing that materials for them. We serve as a quality assurance lab in the initial parts of that adoption process to ensure that they're doing that technology correctly in their facilities with the chemistries and the equipment that they have to use. So we provide all that testing services for fiber and for yarn and fabric. And this does make it a fairly unique laboratory space, because out in the industry, you would not typically find all that testing taking place in one physical room. We operate under standard testing conditions of 65% relative humidity and 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which is why I can sit here comfortably right now, my cotton denim jacket, and present to you this morning while we're in ongoing having high record heats outside in this part of North Carolina, as I know we are across many parts of the U.S. At this point. But the critical importance of those environmental conditions is that cotton loves moisture. And as the environment changes, as the temperature and the humidity varies, cotton is going to absorb different amounts of moisture from that environmental air. And when cotton absorbs moisture, it gets stronger, which is going to skew testing data. Your fiber strength, your yarn strength, your fabric strength will all vary depending on the environment that you're testing in. So we have to tightly control those conditions to reduce that variation in testing. That control, along with the calibrations and the updates that we make to our equipment, allows us to ensure that the testing that we do today is reliable and comparable to what we do tomorrow, next week, the next month, and the next year. Depending on what product we're testing, we have to condition anywhere between 24 and 72 hours before we can do the physical testing on that material, which means that we maintain these conditions 24 hours a day, every single day of the year. Almost all of our testing, I would say at least 90% of the testing we do today, is all captured through a software system. It's a proprietary software system that we utilize. It's used by other textile industry folks as well. And essentially, everything that's coming off the instruments is electronically captured. And when the testing is completed, a physical report is emailed out to those users. We operate and follow standard testing procedures. So within the industry, there are two different standards bodies that put forth official test methods on how you perform a test on any material. And we follow those so that we ensure that we're doing it consistently. And the lab also participates in what we call proficiency testing, where multiple labs around the world are getting the same samples. We do the same testing, and our data is compared so that we can have assurance in the reliability not only of our instruments, but also the capabilities of the lab staff that are doing that testing. Now, we do have 5 members of the lab team that operate in this lab. Today, you'll have an opportunity to meet 3 of those ladies. And I'm going to begin by introducing you to the head of our fiber testing area, and that's Roberta. Roberta, if you want to come on up and introduce yourself to the group.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Roberta Smith-Yule. I am Senior Lab Technician for Fiber Testing. I am a graduate of Meredith College here in Raleigh. I have a Bachelor of Science in Biology, and I have 8 years experience with Cotton Incorporated.
Thank you, Roberta. Now, as Roberta transitions around to the fiber testing area, the first thing that we're going to see is the high volume instrument, or HVI testing. And I'm going to give her a moment to get over to that system. And I will start by telling you that this is the same machine or type of machine that's used by USDA. For classing purposes, we do not do any classing here. And I'm going to cut the camera on so that you can see this instrument testing now. So this is Roberta over at the machine. And essentially she's weighed out a 10-gram sample. And that is going to be placed into the micronair chamber. In the micronair chamber, this is going to be looking at the resistance to airflow. And that resistance to airflow is going to give us a micronair value. The micronair is an indication of both the fineness, how thick or thin that fiber is, as well as the maturity. Then the sample is going to go into the 2 chambers where it's going to go through a parting process to create a fiber beard. And once that fiber is parted and moves over, we got that physical beard there, and you can see those 2 beards within the camera there. On the left, it's doing a length measurement, and then it's going to do a strength measurement. So first we take a look at the fiber length, and then it's going to physically break that beard to give us the strength. And we do that on 2 beards. And I'm going to let her run another sample or 2 while I continue to talk about the importance of the HVI testing. You know, this is a very important tool. We also can get the color and the leaf and the trash content. We don't typically do that for most of the ag and environmental research projects, because often if we're looking at breeder samples that are looking at variety improvement, they've gone through small scale gens and haven't gone through a commercial genning process. So really the leaf and the color grade is not critical to that information that they use. We provide a lot of this testing services, not only to the Agricultural and Environmental Research Group, but also our fiber processing team utilizes information that we get off the HVI. And there we see that second beard again. We're getting a length measurement and then a strength measurement. So I'm going to switch the camera back to me so that our roaming camera can move around to the next instrument that we're going to look at. And as we're transitioning over to our Apus instrumentation, I'll tell you that we typically test between about 30 to 35,000 fiber samples each year within this physical laboratory. And again, those are primarily in support of the Agricultural and the Environmental Research Group, research cooperators that work with them. And again, that's on pest resistance, FOV4, water use efficiency, nitrogen use efficiency, and of course, variety improvements. And so I'm going to switch over now to our roaming camera so that we can take a look at what's going over at the Apus machine. We now got that camera on, and what you're watching Roberta do is tease out a fiber sample. With the Apus testing, we're doing a 0.5 gram of cotton that's going to be weighed and then teased out into a physical hand-rolled sliver. And the reason that she's doing this is to try to help align those fibers so that when it goes into the cassette and is fed into the machine, that it allows those fibers to be separated. Now, this isn't something that just anyone from the street can walk up and do in this laboratory. These ladies have spent a considerable amount of time. They're very, very careful in how they handle this sample, because these machines are going to be finicky and you're going to want this cassette to read and perform properly. And also she's trying hard not to necessarily remove any content from this. We're being careful not to remove short fiber. We're not going to be picking out neps and trash and things of that nature, too much unless it's something that's going to disturb the machine. And so for each sample, we're going to do multiple reps. The Apus is a very slow machine compared to the HVI machine. And I'm going to encourage the roaming camera to kind of transition around now and take a look at what we've got going on at the machine. After Roberta has rolled out the slivers, they would go into that large cassette that would be prepared for loading and running. And one of the things that's unique about Apus is that unlike the HVI, where you saw those bulk samples going into the chamber and we're getting average values, for the Apus, when it goes into the machine, it's individualizing and measuring those fibers singly. So we're going to be looking at about 3,000 fibers for each of those sliver samples. And that gives us distribution information. So we not only get like the average maturity, we get a distribution of maturity. And we can look at some of the data on the screen. This is what the data output looks like. It gives us information about the neps. We get short nep content. We get the length distribution information and short fiber content. And this is value added. It's important in breeding programs to look beyond just average properties of HVI and to get information about length distributions to make those improvements. But also, this is a critical tool to help fiber processing. They often will look at the Apus instrumentation to make sure that they're not generating neps during the cotting process. We're going to switch the camera back to me so that our roaming camera has the opportunity to start moving over to the yarn system. And behind me, you can actually see Angela in the process of getting ready to start one of the yarns tests here today. And so that first test that we are going to be taking a look at is going to be about strength testing. As the ladies get ready, I'll tell you that within our yarn testing area, we have 5 instruments that are used to evaluate yarn property. These primarily support the research efforts of the fiber processing team. In more recent years, we've also done a lot of work for breeder testing as well, where we want to see how fiber quality translates back to the efforts that we have in yarn quality as well. So now we're going to spotlight so that we can actually see this instrument from that angle. And this is a tensor wrapper. And this is the yarn strength that's done by averaging the breaking strength of 20 sections of yarn from the same yarn package. So on the left there, you can see the yarn creel in which those yarn packages are lined up. And so this machine, once it's loaded, will pull 20 sections from each package, and that is going to be averaged to give us the breaking strength. And you can see that going to the machine. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see that yarn being pulled through, and the data is being captured on the computer monitor on the right. We can see some of that data being gathered at this point. And I think we're going to be transitioning now back over to another yarn system, our UT6. So as she just swings around the yarn testing area of the lab here, we'll keep the camera on her. We've got, again, that yarn creel set up, and this is our UT6. This system, the yarn is passed through the sensors, and they provide the evaluation of the evenness, giving us thick and thin places, as well as the hairiness, yarn diameter. The thick and thin places and the hairiness will create texture in the fabric if that's desired, but if it's not desired, it's known as a defect, and it can be a quality control issue. We also utilize this system to confirm the yarn diameter to help the fiber processing team know that they've actually produced the correct yarn size that they're wanting to do. And if fiber processing is having a problem with a particular position on a spinning frame, then a lot of the data from this instrument will show up in the test. So again, this is a system that's going to be pulling multiple information off of that yarn. And you can see the type of data input. You can see essentially, the consistency of that data on those charts at the bottom of the screen, and then the variety of the data that we're looking at associated with evenness and imperfections, yarn diameter, and other information from this machine. So I'm going to put the camera back on me so that we can allow our roaming camera to carefully transition over to the fabric area. And as we're going into the fabric area, this is an opportunity for me to get to introduce another member of our team. Earlier, you met Roberta, head of fiber. I want you to meet Suzanne now.
Angela.
Sorry, Angela. Sorry.
It's okay. You'll meet Suzanne in a minute. I'm Angela Massengill. I've been here about 27 years, a little over. I am a NC State graduate in textile science, and I work primarily in the fabric testing area.
Thank you, Angela.
Yeah.
Yes. So I know all you are like that out there. I unfortunately, I don't have children. But I do often invert the names of my lab team on occasion, and they quickly correct me as if I'm their mother. So it's all good here. So we're going to switch the camera back over so we can take a look at the fabric area here. And I'm looking for the camera. There she is. All right, replacing that. There we go. So this is just a general look at our fabric testing area. In fabric testing, we do over 40 different tests. We're focused on, did something tear up during the wear of it? Did it shrink? Does it wrinkle? So everything that we do in the fabric area are primarily very destructive tests. All of these are based, again, on standard test methods, and we're going to have an opportunity to take a look at several of these tests today, and we're going to begin with the Martindale, and that's the system that we're walking up on right now. Angela is there operating the machine for us. The Martindale test, what we're doing here is that we're taking the samples and they're put on that sample holder and they're rubbed against a standard abradant. And this is going to go through the process of looking at abrasion as well as peeling for the test. Now, one of the things that's kind of unique about what you're watching right now is that we're not using a standard abradant. We are using this green material here, which is known as Trisac. And the reason that we're doing that is that when there was a need to improve the wear and tear performance of cotton leggings, researchers at Cotton Incorporated developed the Tough Cotton technology. And that was needed because retailers and brands were having issues with wear and tear in leggings, and they were looking at transition to blends or to polyester. Well, the researchers did such a good job of making it a truly tough cotton, we had to come up with a much more aggressive way of testing that fabric. So we're using an abradant that's typically used on cotton socks to really try to beat up these materials, just to show how durable tough cotton is. And if we could take a look at the samples that we have demonstrating that, what you can see there on the left is a tough cotton treated fabric, and on the right is the control fabric. And the counts that you see there are the number of cycles of abrasion that occurred. And you can see cotton without any special treatment is going to wear up. It's going to develop holes. Think about this as the holes in the knees or the bums of the child's leggings. And you can see with the tough cotton technology why this is one of our most popular technologies out there for retailers and brands, because this really does hold up. We're going to allow Angela and our roaming camera to move over to the next test, where we're going to be looking at one of the first of our fabric strength test methods. And this is a burst testing system. This instrument is called a True Burst, and it is a pneumatic bursting tester. The dome size is going to be based on the fabric weight, and the system adjusts to the pressure appropriately. And you can see that dome right now. We can see the expansion of that bubble up underneath that dome as that fabric is being stretched and stretched to a breaking point. Now, the fun thing about this is that without an instrument, if you know your textiles, you can go out into the textile processing mill while they're running things. And if you can stick your thumb through the fabric, it's not even worth sending the samples to the lab. However, we utilize test instruments so that we can get quantitative values so that the researchers can have that data so that they can see what they need to do to improve things. And we're taking a look at some of the data output on that screen right there. So by having this data information, a researcher has done something to, try to maybe improve the wrinkle resistance or try to improve the smoothness. And we are giving them data that they need to allow to adjust those chemistries. And here we can see a test report, how it would look when it comes off the instrumentation as well. And so by having this information, corrections and formulations can be made to fine tune to get the best performance without harming the integrity of the strength of the fabric. We're now going to be moving over to another form of strength testing within the laboratory. Angela's showing us here tear testing. She's going to load a slit sample into this machine. This is an Elmendorf tear tester. And she applies a slit to it, and then she's going to allow the pendulum to swing down, which physically tears the fabric, and we get the tear strength in pounds force. And this is an essential tool for quality control and product development, as it helps the manufacturers ensure that the fabrics are meeting the required standards for both durability and performance. And again, this is important. We do this on woven samples in particular. Again, if we're looking at things like improving wrinkle resistance or any other treatments that we've done, we have to be careful that we've not denigrated the strength of the material. And that's why these tests are so important. So we're going to carefully move around to the last testing. As we walk through the laboratory, you'll get a chance to see a few of the other instruments that we do. We don't have time to cover all of them today. There's a lot of things that you can see if you do come to Cotton Incorporated in our labs. The last test that Angela is going to be demonstrating today is another way of evaluating the testing strength on a woven fabric, and this is a tensile tester. And the fabric's gripped between those two clamps, and they're being pulled apart at a constant rate. And again, the particular load cell is going to be based on that fabric weight. This, you can see that fabric pulling and stretching apart right now as she's showing that. And we get a distortion within that fabric that shows that that's essentially the breaking point within that material. We also get a lot of great data from this, which you can see on the screen. And in this one, you can actually see that stress strain curve. So that curve at the bottom, it's the stress strain that's being applied to that fabric. And that allows us to determine the breaking strength and provide that as a report. Well, at this point, I'm going to put the camera back on myself so that we have the opportunity for the woman behind the roaming camera to come up and be introduced today. And it's not Angela. This time it actually is going to be Suzanne. And Suzanne is our laboratory manager, and she's been the one that's been doing all of our videoing for us today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Suzanne Holmes. I'm the manager of the Product Evaluation Lab. I'm also a graduate of North Carolina State University College of Textiles, and I joined Cotton Incorporated a little over 8 years ago in 2016. We thank you so much for spending your morning with us and allowing us to show you around our lab.
Well, we made it through it. Only a few hiccups and glitches in this morning. This is just a small part of our laboratory activities. You have two members of the team that you did not get to meet today that I think are watching with us. Unfortunately, they were not able to join us this morning for us to include them in this presentation, and I know they greatly missed that. If you have enjoyed this at all, I really strongly encourage you to come and take a tour of Cotton Incorporated, to reach out to the Cotton Board, staff there, and ask them about the producer tours that we have 3 of those each year. And we would love to actually have you come and do a real tour of the laboratory where you get to see a lot more than you got to see today, not to mention all the other laboratories in the back of the building here. So that's the end of the formal part of this song and dance this morning. And we're happy to open up the floor for any questions that you all have.